Hello, everybody. My name is Allycia Wolff. I work with the ARC Minnesota as a planning specialist and an advocate. And today I'm going to be talking about our future planning services here at the ARC Minnesota, as well as our FutureLife Options program. I wish that I could be in person with everybody as Parents Weekend happens here in October in Minnesota. But we are adjusting to the new world of COVID and are able to get people information. So kudos to MICC for moving everything to a safe format and to this new world that we're all navigating. So the ARC Minnesota is a grassroots nonprofit organization. We serve the entire state of Minnesota, and we support people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We have the mission of making sure that people have the option to live in their communities in a way that works for them and to support people in that way. So our services, all listed there, really work to make sure that people are supported in their communities in a way that works for them. So people have access to the direct care that they need. People have access to be able to learn about public policy and how to make changes happen in that, abuse prevention, healthcare access, guardianship information, social security information, future planning services, self-advocacy. This is by no means a comprehensive list of the services that the ARC provides, but we want to make sure that people can think of us as a first stop shop for anything disability related. So if you have a question about disability supports or how to navigate a system or how to get through some red tape, please give us a call and we're more than happy to help support. We also want to make sure that people know that we are a social justice movement and that we want to continue to move forward how people with disabilities are seen in our community. And we want to make sure that people with disabilities are seen as able people with great contributions that they're able to give to their community. And this is the foundation of all of our work. At the ARC Minnesota, we have a variety of different planning services. This is a list of the majority that we offer here. Today, I'll be talking in depth about our FutureLife Options program, which the ARC and the FutureLife Options program have a long-running history with MICC in our ability to help parents and caregivers think about the future. So we developed FutureLife Options back in 2006 when parents and caregivers continued to come to us and say, I am concerned about the future and I want to make sure that my child always has the care and support that they need. But I don't really know how to get there. I don't know what steps I need to take. So we developed FutureLife Options. So it is a program where we have a specific layout of how we support people through all of these questions, which again, I'll go into in a bit, but this was the start of our planning services. And then we realized that people need this planning support in a lot of different areas of their life. The Transition Vision Project is helping students move from high school to adult life. Person-centered planning is something that I'm sure everyone here has heard about. We are moving into a much more person-centered world in supporting people with disabilities. And sometimes it can be kind of just a jargon catchphrase, but our person-centered planning is a facilitated process where an ARC planning specialist helps somebody think about their future, think about what they want, and then plan for the supports that they need to get there. So it is facilitated by somebody outside of a person's network and supports to really see what a person wants and then how to help them actually move forward in that so that they can accomplish their goals in life in a way that works for them. Our Get Set Online tool is an interest quiz of sorts to help middle school and high school students or anyone really think about the main points of their life and what they want to strive for. So it's really good for people who don't really know what they want for their future. The Transition to Adulthood workbook is a workbook specifically for parents and caregivers to help their children and loved ones transition from school to out of life. So it's from the perspective of a caregiver and what you can do to transition in the time where you're being told a million different things. And our Focus on the Future of Future Planning podcast is a podcast that I did last year with the ARC Minnesota, and we talk about future planning as a whole. So we talk about legal and financial planning. We talk with families that have done our FutureLife Options program. We talk about the ABLE account and guardianship, and we talk about the concern of vulnerability over somebody's life. We talk about self-advocacy, and the future of the ARC in general. So that's a good free listen anywhere you can get podcasts. Seek out Focus on the Future. So now these are questions that a lot of people ask when they're thinking about future planning. And it's the point that I like to start at because it's probably questions that have already crossed your mind a few times. How do I make sure that my child has a good life? What will happen when I'm gone or when I can no longer provide the amount of care that I am right now? What can the future look like? What are the options even? Because what's possible now is very different than what was possible 5 years ago, 10 years ago. How can I set things in motion? What steps do I need to take to make those goals a reality? How can I prepare as much as possible? What can I do now to make sure that I am setting people up for success in the future? And who will be there? Who's going to take the role that I'm currently filling in my child's life? These are all questions that we hear with almost every conversation that we have with parents, and they are questions that we are trained and ready to help work with families through. Now at the ARC, as future planning specialists, we don't know all of the answers because of course every family is different, but we do know how to facilitate that conversation. We do know how to ask questions, and we do know how to really take a deep dive into somebody's life to help plan for all of these things so that people can have some peace of mind. Of course, they're going to change ongoing, and we're ready to work with families as lives change. But these are the questions that we typically start with. Now, in that whole question of where to start, I like to say that it's never too early or too late to start future planning. I've worked with families who are future planning when their child is 18 months old. I just had a meeting a few weeks ago with somebody. And I work with a lot of parents who are in their 80s and are planning for their child who has always lived at home and want to make sure that they get support. And then everywhere in between. So it's never too early and it's never too late. So try to not guilt yourself or feel bad that you don't have the will done or the quality of life planning completed. I also say that dreaming about an ideal future is an important component to planning. So I say that because when we think about our future, we want to think about if anything was possible, what is the dream? If absolutely anything was possible, my dream would be to live in a log cabin in the middle of the woods with perfect Wi-Fi and a 10-minute drive away from a downtown area where I could see all of my friends and spend all of my time. Now, it's probably not a reality that I could live in a log cabin in the middle of the woods and be 10 minutes from downtown and all of my friends. But that's my dream. That's what I really, really want. Now, it's impossible to say if that exists or not, but it's important to dream about that because it picks out the things that are the most important components to my life when I think about the future. I want to be in the woods. I want to have privacy, but I also want to have a community that I feel strongly connected to. So we push people to start to think about and dream for an ideal future as a place to start in planning so that we can move closer to that future goal with knowing the most important things about a person's dream future. It's part of how we like to approach planning. The ARC as an organization, if you were to sign up for future planning services or to reach out to us for support, we offer guidance and a format and a push. Now, doing future planning is something that you can certainly do on your own. It's a process that would be a lot to navigate on your own. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that. I'm sure people are listening to this webinar and are thinking, oh, I've tried to do a will for the last 10 years, or I've really thought about future planning, but I don't really know where to start. The benefit of working with the ARC is that we've done this with hundreds of families, and there's a format to it. You have a ARC specialist, a person that you're working with one-on-one, who's going to help guide you through this process. And know that planning is ongoing. In our Future Life Options program, we meet with families every year to make sure that we are readdressing issues that come up or changing information that was maybe relevant one year that isn't relevant this year. because we want to make sure that people have that ongoing support. Why should I plan? This is a question that I'm sure everybody knows, it's important. Planning is important. But it is also the best gift that you can give to your family now and in the future. So doing planning, having that intentional process allows your family right now, in the here and now, to hear what is important to you and to hear what is important to your child with a disability, so that everybody is on the same page and everybody is moving towards the same goal now when you're healthy and when you're able to really make movements towards a really good life. It's also a wonderful gift to people in the future because it takes away the question of what mom or dad would want and what should we do now? And how do I apply for this program? And how do I re-up my, my brother's healthcare? Things like that. So it's a great gift for now and in the future. Planning allows people to preserve benefits, meaning that if a person is on Social Security or medical assistance, they can only have $2,000 or $3,000 in their name respectively. And so it makes it difficult for families to give money to their children in fear that they will lose their government benefits. Setting up a future plan, doing a will, and creating a supplemental needs trust allows for those benefits to be preserved and to stay with that person because it is a needed service for people who are on that. Doing future planning also helps in build connections because, like I said at the previous point, it allows everybody to come together and hear what's really important to a person and what needs to happen for that person to live a good life in the future. And that's fostering connections, that's building community so that everybody is on the same page to really support somebody. It also leads to loved ones' continued quality of life. Just like I've said before, and when we're all working together, it makes for a better supported plan and a better future for everyone. I can say the same for myself personally. I know that I do really well when my friends know what's going on in my life and I can tell them how I want them to help me or what I need from them. We believe that everyone deserves a good life now and in the future. The book there, A Good Life by MICC, was written a few years ago, and MICC is a man in Canada, and he did a lot of research in what makes a good life, specifically for people with disabilities, but also not. And if you were to Google what makes a good life or how to live a good life or components of the happiest people, you would find lists and lists of research studies and articles that are written of what makes the happiest people. And you'll always find, if you look at that research, you'll always find a lot of common components. The first one usually is relationships, the people in our lives, who we spend our time with. And this is everything from the conversations that we have with the cashier at the grocery store and the postal worker, to the partner that we choose to spend our lives with, to our best friends, to our satellite friends, to everything in between. All of those relationships are really important. And I'm talking about this because when we work with families, we consider all of the things that I have listed here of what makes a good life. And these are things that we really try to focus on because it's research proven that if these components are satisfied, people are living good and better and healthier lives, where they're more satisfied themselves and therefore safer and are just happier. So the first one is relationships, who we have in our life. The second one is home. And this is not necessarily a roof over our head, but it is a place that we feel at home. For me, it's anywhere that my dog and my cat are and where they are happy. That's where my home is. The next one is contribution. So that is the knowledge and the ability to see that you are contributing to your community or you're contributing to somebody else. In a lot of people's worlds right now, that would be through a job. And your contribution would be employment. But for some people, employment maybe isn't the best way that people can feel contribution. Maybe it's through volunteer work. Maybe it's through what they leave to their friends' lives. Maybe it's through organizing a cause that they really believe in. The next one is choice. And again, this is everything from the choice to choose what's for breakfast or dinner, to the choice to choose where to live, to the choice to be able to choose what happens to their body and who they spend time with. And the next one is wealth. So this doesn't mean that you have to be wealthy to have joy or to be satisfied in life, but it means that you have to have a certain amount of wealth to be able to pay for what makes you happy and what you need. Like if we go back to my goal of living in a log cabin and being close to the city, then it's important that I have the amount of wealth to be able to take a vacation to a remote cabin once or twice a year. So it's not to be wealthy, you know, Jeff Bezos wealthy, but to be able to pay for the things that you need to make you happy. And again, in Future Life Options and in the ARC's planning services, we really try to make sure that we talk about every one of these areas. And we recommend that if you're doing future planning with us or on your own, that you think about these as well to make sure that every one of these components is considered in planning for a good, happy future. So Future Life Options. Future Life Options is, again, the program that we started at the ARC in 2006 when caregivers and families were coming to us and saying that they wanted to plan for the future. If you think overall about Future Life Options, think about it as an all-encompassing future planning support. So it involves caregiving planning. So as a caregiver, you have the opportunity to write down everything in your head down onto paper, because there's a lot of information up there. Everything from who your child knows, to what their routines are, to how they communicate, to what their favorite childhood memories are, to what their favorite routines are, to who their doctors are, to how you fill out certain paperwork every year, to what financial plans you already have put in place. That's a lot of information that's in your head right now. So we have what is called a planning guide. And this planning guide is about 90 pages. And again, it's that opportunity for you to put down everything on paper that you know. And that is very critical in thinking about how do I pass along this information? How do I set up somebody to do all the things that I'm doing now? You write it down and you continue to update that, because you want to be able to communicate that. And there's a lot of questions in there that a lot of people wouldn't even consider to ask themselves. Like, for instance, one of the questions we ask is, are there any brand preferences or specific products that a person likes? Some people care a lot about what kind of toothpaste they use, and some people don't care at all. So the planning guide really gives people the opportunity to write it all down and share that information. And so you're sharing it in the here and now with other family members, with other support providers, but you're also sharing it in the event where you wouldn't be able to communicate that in the future. So Future Life Options has the planning guide. And the other major component of Future Life Options is person-centered planning. And again, person-centered planning is that facilitated process where we as ARC planning specialists help to lead a conversation about what somebody wants for their future and then how to get there. This conversation about how to get there is really focused on a person's strengths and abilities and what they have to offer. And it is also focused on what support they need to get there. How do we as a community support that person? How can we set up all the best supports so that a person's gifts and strengths are highlighted and able to be amplified so that they can lead a good life? At the ARC, we fully believe that everybody has every potential to lead an inclusive life where they feel like they're offering contribution, like they have a home, like they have enough wealth, like they have great relationships and they have choice in their life. And this is what we strive for in person-centered planning. And you can kind of see that little rotation. So we talk about a person's abilities and skills and interests and their personal style. Family is a huge component in person-centered planning. Even though it is person-centered planning, It is also family-centered planning, because I know that if I wanted to talk about my dream of living in a log cabin, I wouldn't be able to do that on my own. I have a partner to consider. I have my pets. I have my family, my best friends. I would want them there because they are all important supporters in helping me think about my future. So in the Future Life Options program, you can think about the planning guide. You can think about the planning guide as an opportunity for you to put everything down on paper to get that all organized. And you can think about person-centered planning as that dream for the future. How do we get there? Let's all get on the same page and take steps forward so that we're living a good life now and in the future. And well, one of the examples of the planning guide is that we help people document their morning routine. It's one of the many examples that I give, but for some people, a specific morning routine is very important. Like for me, I wake up, I lay in bed a little bit, I roll around, I make my coffee. Those are all important components to me having a good day, to setting off on the right foot. And as a caregiver, there's probably a lot of information that that would be beneficial for you to contribute about how do you make sure that all of this is communicated so that people have an opportunity to live a good day after good day after good day. The planning guide, as I mentioned, gives a lot of opportunities for you to write down preferences and the details, like they love grilled cheese sandwiches and sports, and to purple shirts and reading a story before bedtime is great. Doctors, these are the doctors that a person needs to see every year. All of those things are documented as well. And these are the main components of planning. So we talk about quality of life, writing down those details, the circle of support, who will be there. In Future Life Options, we do a lot of work in helping families think about who is there right now and what kind of network do you want to build and continue to build so a person feels that support over the course of their life. So we do a lot of work also with families to think about that circle and to have a conversation about how are we building it? How are we bringing more people in? How are we really retaining the relationships that are strong right now so a person is living a good life and feels supported? And we also talk about legal and financial planning. So here it says the wills and the trusts. We talk about guardianship and power of attorney and other options in decision making. Financial planning, we support people in that. We are not attorneys. We cannot set up a person's estate plan, but we can answer a lot of questions about a supplemental needs trust and what needs to be in a will so that you are completely prepared, or mostly prepared, before you step into that meeting with an attorney, so that you know what to expect and you know what needs to be set up. So person-centered planning, again, this is the opportunity to think about somebody's skills, interests, their personal style, their family, their values, their goals, and then to start in moving forward in that. Now, if you wanted to do just person-centered planning with the ARC Minnesota, we would be happy to do just person-centered planning if you didn't feel like you wanted the support in that caregiver documentation also. And again, we work a lot with building circles of support. This cartoon is from a New York Times article that recently came out about making COVID pods. And what a COVID pod is the opportunity for people in separate nuclear families to come together to support each other, whether it's the care, like the direct care for a person with a disability, or just that need for social person-to-person interaction. We have all realized how much screens do not replace that very vital person-to-person communication. And at the ARC, we work a lot with, what does your pod, your circle of support look like? And how can we make sure that you feel safe in it and supported in it and that you're building it? Because friendships and relationships are a lot of work. And so we can guide people, individuals with disabilities and their families and how to build that if they want that support. And I always think about future planning as a three-legged stool. So we have the legal, financial, and quality of life planning. It is important for the integrity of that stool that all three of those components are equally addressed and considered. Because if you create a will, and if you create the supplemental needs trust, and if you do all that financial planning, but you don't plan for the quality of life, or you don't plan as much for the quality of life, and that leg of that stool was shorter, then it would topple over. So in Future Life Options, we really try to push to make sure that people have all of those components satisfied. Now, legal planning, as I always say, is a whole hour-long presentation in itself. And MICC does a wonderful job of bringing in other experts in that area. Again, if you wanted some information, please call the ARC. We're more than happy to help people navigate through which attorneys can I even reach out to do my will and to do estate planning. We have an ARC guide to a power of attorney, and an ARC guide to healthcare directives, and an ARC guide to guardianship and decision-making options. Our ARC guides are when we take a complicated system and we as advocates translate it and break it down into a document or into like 2 pages that's easy to understand, that the everyday human can read and be like, oh, that's what a power of attorney is. Because you can Google, you could spend a lot of time and information. So if you wanted to know what a power of attorney is, a healthcare directive, guardianship and decision-making options, reach out to our ARC guides, and they're all on our website, arcminnesota.org. And you can learn about that, and you can learn about it specifically and how it affects a person with a disability. Now, in the last one on there, supplemental needs trusts. Supplemental needs trusts are a way to make sure that you could leave your child money and assets upon your passing without it affecting any government benefits that they're currently on. So if a person's on Social Security, SSI, they can't have any more than $2,000 to their name. That's the asset limit. But a lot of parents and caregivers and grandparents and aunts and uncles say, but I want to leave money to that person. You can still do that. You just have to set up a supplemental needs trust. And so you leave money to the supplemental needs trust instead of to the person, so it doesn't affect their benefits. And this supplemental needs trust, the purpose of the trust is that it's money for the benefit of that individual. So money out of the supplemental needs trust, you could use on anything that isn't already covered by Social Security or medical assistance. So you could use it on additional dental care that MA doesn't cover, or you could use it to pay for a vacation, or you could use it for a new mattress or a new TV, or a specialty item that is really desired. So that trust makes that ability to leave people money much easier. And an important component to future planning and our Future Life Options program is keeping it up to date. I have this graphic on here because our preferences change. One year, somebody may only love red shirts, red cotton shirts, but the next year, or 2 years, or 3 years down the road, they only want black merino wool t-shirts. And these are preferences that change over time. Just like I have preferences and style changes. And so we want to make sure to keep that relationship going with families in Future Life Options so that it's up to date. Future Life Options, again, considers that planning guide and that person-centered planning process. So we'll keep that all up to date. And then should anything happen to a caregiver who created the planning guide and person-centered planning, then the ARC is there as support to the family. So if anything were to happen to a caregiver at any point, their family could reach out to us and say, my mom's in the hospital with a stroke and I really need to know the contact information for this doctor, or I really need to know where the will is, or I really want the planning guide because now I'm going to step into the caregiver role and I don't know all of the details that my mom knew, or that my aunt knew, or whoever you have stepping into that, and you may not know currently, but you're putting all of that in a great little binder so that people can step in and know how to support an individual with a disability. And we here at the ARC, part of Future Life Options is that we would help in that transition. So if you continue to update that with us every year, then we would be a point of contact and would help navigate that transition for people, so they knew how and when to fill out what paperwork, or they knew where to turn in a time that is already really difficult for people. I like to mention Focus on the Future again, because Focus on the Future was a podcast that I and the ARC Minnesota created specifically to make sure people had the information that they needed to do future planning in a free, accessible format. So Focus on the Future is a podcast specifically for caregivers and parents as they think about future planning. So take a look to that. Covers a whole bunch of different areas. And usually this is the time that I leave for questions. And since we're doing it in a pre-recorded format, I'll just mention some of the questions that I usually get. One of them is, what is the cost of Future Life Options and person-centered planning? Future Life Options, the all-encompassing program where we do the planning guide and person-centered planning. Usually that program takes about a year, because we really do work one-on-one with families and do a deep dive into a person's support and thinking about the future. So it takes about a year. And Future Life Options cost $2,500, $2,500. Families can private pay. You can pay it all in one sum right at the beginning. You can do monthly payments, and it is also covered by the waiver. So if your child is on a traditional waiver, or if they are on a Consumer Directed Community Supports, CDCS waiver, it is waiver funded. So we accept waiver payment for Future Life Options. And then if you wanted to do just the person-centered planning, that is $1,200, and we also accept private pay and waiver funds as well. I usually get a whole bunch of questions about the supplemental needs trusts and wills. I'm going to refer to another presentation for that, or to just call the ARC Minnesota for those. And I think that's where I will leave it today. Again, my name is Allycia Wolff. I work with the ARC Minnesota. My phone number is 952-920-0855. And please feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you may have. And thank you to MICC for facilitating this presentation and giving us the opportunity to share this information. I hope the presentation was helpful and gave some food for thought, and I hope to see you in the future.